Dr Anthony Frobisher. Last time we spoke to him, we had a fascinating conversation about self-help books and why you don't need them. And I believe now he's researching another one. Good evening to you.
Kia ora, and good evening to you, Nick. Yes, thanks for that. Yes, the book's going very well, thanks. Very well indeed. I've sold a record low number of copies, actually, which I'm very pleased about, because as you know, I'm very much against self-help books. So that's in good heart. Yeah.
That's very good, and we're looking forward to hearing the details of your next exploit.
Well, look, I'm very pleased to be able to report on that, Nick. It's a complex idea, which I'm going to try and explain in simple terms. But look, just before I do that, I just want to remark I've enjoyed your program very much. There was a gentleman, Gary Stokes, an insulator you spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and I was very taken by his ideas about a bubble wrap and putting them on his windows for insulation, an economical and useful device. So I tried that out, and it actually works quite well, and it had the extra benefit is that I put it over my southern windows, and I was able to blot out my neighbours to the south that I don't get on terribly well with. So, but I did want to say though, now Gary did mention about using the innards of soft toys, that polymer kind of material from the fabric from inside soft toys. Now, I did think that was a good idea, but I just wanted to point out that destroying, let's face it, eviscerating children's toys, even though they might have grown up, can result in some trauma. And I just wanted to put in a note of caution there about using the internal organs, so to speak, in order to insulate the roof of your house.
Do you think it's best not done in front of the child?
Well, even the grown-up child, we can hang on to. Often these things are put away and we forget about them. But our grown-up, our adult children can be still psychically attached to their soft toys, and I just wouldn't like to think that they were thinking of their innards throughout our ceilings.
So is your new book Soft Toys and Why We Love Them?
No, it's actually the idea I wanted to bring to you, and like I said, it's a complex idea. I want to try and explain in simple terms. It involves the sufferings of a relatively small clinical population that I've been researching, and some of your listeners might find a resonance here. They might recognise themselves in this. Putting simply, its technical term is oral masochism. Oral masochism and the vegan personality is what I'd like to talk about briefly this evening, if I may. These are people who are punishing themselves essentially for their neonatal ambivalence around the breast, or breastfeeding, of course, is what I mean. So what happens is often the baby, the neonates, as we call them as clinical neuropsychologists, the neonate finds that they have an ambivalence. They want to breastfeed, but they don't want to breastfeed, and it's generally a sequelae of difficult psychological experiences. And as adults, these people, the oral masochists, as I call them, the direct behavioral manifestation of this oral fixation, if you like, is that they're perversely attracted to oral expressions that involved loathed practices. So what I'm saying is, people, for instance, might eating is an obvious example, isn't it, of an oral expression. So people might deliberately eat foods that they don't like, that might have some sort of connection with the breast in a symbolic term. So things like mushrooms, burgers, dumplings, blancmanges, Yorkshire puddings, jellies, that sort of thing. They'll find themselves gorging themselves on these foods, which is very very distressing, of course, for them and their loved their families. Yes.
Could this partially explain the aversion to sprouts?
Well, it can. Yes, a lot of people say, look, I don't like Brussels sprouts. I must admit I'm in that category myself. But it might be not the taste of the Brussels sprouts. And it's a very good example, actually, Nick, if I don't mind saying. Sprouts can be, that people gorge themselves, even though they hate the taste, which a lot of people do. But it's not just about foods, Nick. It's also about musical instruments, for instance, or blowing bubbles, balloons. I have a patient myself who has a particular aversion to the trombone, but he can't help playing the trombone. He plays the tune, the tune to the children's TV program. I forget what it is, but he plays a range of tunes, and which he hates, and accompanied by his wife on the timpani, and they make the most cacophonous sound, it sounds funny, I know, but it's actually a dreadful situation for them.
Dr. Frobisher, again, I have a personal experience to share with you here.
Oh, please do.
I was encouraged as quite a musical child to join a band at school, but not a rock band. I was in the choir, but I needed an instrument, so it was suggested I join the brass band, and they gave me a very, very old trombone. And every time I tried to blow into it, it would actually fall apart.
Yes, and you look. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question, Nick?
Well, go ahead, and we'll see whether I can give you a personal answer.
What sort of foods do you like to eat?
Actually, I'm quite a keen cook, so I don't mind going shopping, buying ingredients, and making something up from scratch.
Yes, and you like to eat what?
Well, I like to eat meat and vegetables and spices and herbs and sauce. Sauces are good.
Right.
Sauces, a good sauce.
Yes. Well, you see, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're probably an ordered, neat, precise, well-drilled sort of a person, aren't you? Because, see, what I see here are expressions of a vegan personality. I know meat doesn't sound like it, but what I've found is that people who like these kind of foods, and oral masochism is often associated with this vegan personality, which we've discovered in an area of the brain that we call the hypnoceros area of the brain, and so what you might have here is somewhere between the vegan personality and the carnivorous personality. So you might find at times that you tend to be messy, you throw things around, have trouble at the toilet, that sort of thing. With this, and I know it's
trouble in the toilet.
I didn't like to put too fine a point on it, but I imagine, Nick, that you generally find yourself being like I said, well drilled, always on time, sort of person. Do you not?
I actually respect punctuality is big in my life. Yes.
Yeah, you are. You see, there you are. There's vegan personality and potential oral masochism. Now, without a full diagnosis, full assessment, I couldn't say more. But there are potentials there, and people do get themselves in some bother. So, and some people find themselves, with oral masochism, this return to breast-shaped items. They find themselves driving over hills at high speed, and mountain climbing, that sort of thing. This return to the breast. Do you find yourself driving over hills at high speed at all?
Well, yes, it can happen, and I must point out that some of my best friends are vegans.
Look. I mean, this could. I mean, we could talk all night about this, but you know that you'll be familiar with that interesting sensation you get in your tummy, don't you? You drive quickly over a high hill, that kind
Oh, like going past Frog Rock out towards Hamner.
Exactly,
Yes.
or driving towards Hanmer Springs, that series of undulations, and but people who have this oral masochistic tendency do enjoy that sort of thing.
What, driving at high speed over bumps?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it helps if the suspension on your car's okay, but that's good fun.
Well, I don't know whether you remember those old Austin Morris and Morris socks, but the hydroelastic suspension. You go over one of those bumpy things, and the bump starts, and it gets higher and higher and higher. And people have got themselves in quite a state. I've noticed amongst my patients, those who do experience oral masochism, buying up these old cars, old Austin 1800s and Morris 1300s and things like that, just to get this experience, which is quite interesting from my point of view. And my research goes on.
How long until the book's published?
Well, I'm talking with Routledge now, and I'm hoping within the next few months. I think I should have completed my research by then. I want to put a few more people through the MRI, through the CAT scan, and by the time I've got them through, I've discovered, like I said, this hypnocerus part of the brain, which lights up orange, interestingly. But anyway, yes, once we've discovered some more of these people, we'll do full tests, and we should have a full range of these people. And I'm hoping that we can get this into the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the Psychiatric Disorders, Volume 7, coming up shortly.
Just to close, Dr. Anthony Frobisher, is there a help group for people with this affliction?
I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked, Nick. Yes, we are forming a help group now. It's a group psychotherapy. It's called the Oral Masochistic and Vegan Personality Group. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's one of our own jokes, bit of a mouthful. Yes, we are hoping to get this up running shortly, and maybe if I'm able to talk to you in your program again, I can advise your listeners of where we go from here.
Jolly good. Dr. Anthony Frobisher, always a pleasure to talk to you on After Dark, and we hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Good night to you. And coming up very shortly, we actually have a chef joining us. Clotilde Romano will join us and tell us all about how to make your own pasta here on After Dark.